Hello everybody, welcome to another Eternal Deck Tech. So as you may know, we've had a recent release for Into Shadow, a brand new campaign, and there's a bunch of really cool new cards. You've probably seen a lot of Vara Vengeance Seeker running around, but there's a bunch of other ones as well. That being said, we are running Vara Vengeance Seeker in this deck, but there's a ton of other new cards that we're also playing with. We're going to be playing Tome of Repetition today, as well as Azindel and the Varas. So we've got a bunch of the new cards from the set, and this is going to be a deck that's all about playing attachments and using as many spellcraft abilities on them as possible. Before we get too far into the deck tech, I do want to give a quick shout out, of course, as I always do, to all my subs and patrons. I really thank you so much. Couldn't do this without you, and we've had a huge uptick over the last couple months for all the people who have been helping me out on Twitch stuff, and I can't say thank you enough. Like I said, I mean, this is a dream for me, and being able to do it for all of you wonderful people has really been amazing, so thank you so much for that. Now, going into the deck here, we have a bunch of different units to try and like slap a whole bunch of these attachments on. Essentially, what we're going to be doing is trying to get a Tome of Repetition very early and get our spellcraft on very fast. So we want to use this to ramp up, so that we can actually get out a bunch of really expensive things and start just going over the top of a lot of different decks. So Azindel is a card that whenever I've seen it land, it's almost always instant death. This card is insane. If you have any board at all and you play Azindel, you tend to win, and often even if you don't, because you still get two 1/1 deadlies that are unblockable and give you cards out of your opponent's deck. Like, this card's ridiculous. So we're going to try and get to Azindel really quickly by using Tome of Repetition, and also just like doing a bunch of other really powerful things in the meantime if we can't get to Azindel specifically. So we have Temple Scribe to help us draw cards and to use it to suit up a bunch of things onto. We have Aurelian Merchant because, as you probably know by now, Aurelian Merchant is just format defining. It's really powerful. The extra power that you get off of it is insane, and of course having a market is super strong. So we've got Aurelian Merchants as well, and then Horde Plunderer, which is kind of the ideal. If we can get Horde Plunderer and like Tome or Surgeon Saw, you can start just going off like crazy. Being able to spellcraft for free and then use multiple spellcrafts is really nutty. You can do some disgusting things with this card. We have then kind of some mid-range cards that are there just to kind of stopgap for a lot of aggro matches, and also just like really good units to slap some of these weapons on, specifically Cirso's Cleaver. We've got the Sandstorm Titan because we do have a problem with flyers. There's no real flyers in our deck, so if they're playing like some kind of Haru deck and they have a bunch of Valkyries and stuff like that, then we could be in some trouble, and it's nice to have something that just kind of stops that. Plus, Sandstorm Titan's just really good against like Skycrag decks. They can't permafrost it, they can't really torch it. I mean, Obliterate gets it, Double Torch does, but there's not a whole lot that deals really well with it just on its own. So Sandstorm Titan's pretty good against that style of deck. And then we have the Vara Vengeance Seeker, which is the brand new Sandstorm Titan. So we're kind of running 8 copies. Little bit of overstatement here. I don't think Vara is quite as powerful, but Vara is really strong. It does a lot of interesting things. So when it comes into play, the enemy player has to choose to either sacrifice a unit or make Vara into a 5/6, thus the equation with Sandstorm Titan, and to give it deadly. So it becomes lifesteal, deadly, stops all Aegis, and is a 5/6. So pretty powerful card for 4. And I mean, it's so just really nice stabilization against a lot of different aggro decks, because they either have to sacrifice something or make it so big that it's kind of hard for them to deal with. And of course, the lifesteal is a big swing. Not to mention that if it has lifesteal, it makes Cirso's Cleaver on it real nice. The other thing that's really cool about it is that we do have Surgeon Saw, and it's one of the main reasons why we're running Surgeon Saw, is that it's a summon ability, the +2/+2. So it can become a 5/6 because your opponent doesn't want to sacrifice anything, and then they'll kill it, and then you Surgeon Saw it back. And then you have a 5/6 that can become a 7/9, or a 7/8, sorry. And yeah, it just kind of keeps bumping up like that, so it's a really good card to get out of the void. You'll see it in a lot of Haunting Scream decks too, by the way, if you haven't already. So we've already got those kind of things. And then obviously Azindel is our little bit of our top end to go with the Tome of Repetition. We have a bunch of other top end as well. Obviously Surgeon Saw is very strong. It costs 6 to get really powerful, but lifesteal on Sandstorm Titan is a good way for us to swing back against a lot of aggro decks. We have Dark Return to pull back a bunch of these things as well. I mean, that's just really nasty if you have a Tome of Repetition out already, because you can just get multiple units out immediately and come back into play very fast. Like, you can come down back from a down board position very, very quickly with a Surgeon's Saw and a Tome of Repetition. You've got Cirso's Cleaver, same kind of thing. Cirso's Cleaver is one of those cards that really breaks a board stall or turns a game where you're a fair bit behind into one where you're immediately ahead. Because if you've got 7, or you've got like a Horde Plunderer out so you can Cirso's Cleaver, you don't even need a Tome of Repetition. Like, just imagine slapping this on Vara, even if it's a 3/4, you get a 6/7 killer, and you eat something else. So, like, even if your opponent's bored, you're sitting there with Vara, and they've got 2 World Bearer Behemoths or something, it's like, or like a World Bearer Behemoth and a Sandstorm Titan, it's like, okay, slap it on Vara, eat the Titan, kill the World Bearer Behemoth, and gain 6 life or 5 life? I mean, yeah, that's pretty silly. So you can do some really disgusting things with Cirso's Cleaver. And then we have Gleaming Shield, which it might be better if it's something like Changey Stick. Changey Stick's nice in that it allows us to block things. It does kill units as well. Does a bunch of really cool things. Gleaming Shield, the problem is that it's expensive and that it's... the Aegis doesn't matter a lot of the times because we have Vara. Vara doesn't allow things to have Aegis. Gleaming Shield is still very strong, don't get me wrong, but I'm not 100% on it. The spellcraft for Mirror Image is the main reason to run it, because if you can get a Tome of Repetition and you get multiple Mirror Images, it's bonkers. But this is the one where you might want to flex it. Maybe you put in another Surgeon Saw, maybe you go to a Changey Sticks. Just as an idea, there's some things that you can play around with that. Same idea with the spells, actually, too. So, right now, our game against aggro decks has been okay from the test games that I've played with it. It does seem like the kind of deck that would like to run a Hailstorm besides the Temple Scribes. But I like Temple Scribe because it allows us to get earlier Tome of Repetitions. Being able to slap it on a 2 versus a 3 makes a pretty big difference when we're trying to ramp up really quickly and try and stabilize against a lot of boards. But we do have Sandstorm Titans, we do have Varas. I mean, this is the kind of deck, like, everything has at least 4 toughness, so we kind of want to run Hailstorm, but I also want to have these earlier attachments. You might want to play around with that yourself, so maybe cut out the Temple Scribes, play some Hailstorms, maybe play Strategize, which is something I was doing for a little while. But I found that I wanted to have earlier units to attach onto, and I thought the Temple Scribe would be kind of a nice little in-between between like a spell like Strategize and a unit. On top of that, we have a bunch of removal spells. We've got Annihilate, Equivocate, and Banish. And these are really flexible spots right now. It just kind of depends on what you're seeing. Annihilate being really good against big time decks. It's awesome to kill Sandstorm Titans and World Bearer Behemoths and things like that. Opposing Varas, honestly, as well. Equivocate, similar thing. It's good against a lot of big units. Not so good against small units. Annihilate is okay against smaller units. So we've got some Banish to shore that up. But we might want to end up like going the opposite direction and going like a little bit more Banish, a little less Equivocate. Banish also being useful against, like, there's a fair number of Mask of Torment decks and things that have been running around. Also kills things like Obelisk, so Banish can run a little bit of some extra utility here. So you might want to switch those around. It's just, I'd play with these numbers a fair bit if you have the option to, and just kind of see what works out for your meta and what you're playing against right now. Then we have Wisdom of the Elders to help us just kind of smooth all the draws out, make things a little bit easier. Because Tome of Repetition is going to be one of the biggest things that we can get. It's super important to have it early and be able to ramp into things. And it's also really awesome late, because then it allows us to do multiple activations of things like Feeding Time or, you know, Mirror Images and stuff. So you want to make sure that you actually draw these Tomes of Repetition. We have 3 and 1 in the market, but it's still always good to have a little bit of extra draw. The power base that we have, another reason actually why I don't like Hailstorm that much is we're running banners. The reason why we're running banners instead of seats is that even though we're running only sigils rather than, say, like Waystones or anything like that, we don't have like any of the transmute cards, we're not running, you know, standards or stuff like that. The problem is, if we run seats, it's still only 9. 9's not really enough for me to be comfortable. They're not going to be undepleted. We've got 23 units. Temple Scribe is going to come down fairly early, so we should be able to banner up a decent amount of the time. It's hard to say. It's a little bit of a split. If you decide to go with Hailstorms, you might want to switch to from banners to seats instead. So just a little bit of a thought. So we've got like one banner for Xenan, because we have a little bit more Primal than we have Xenan, and, well, than we have Shadow. So we've got 3 Elysian banners, 1 Xenan banner, and then the rest is basically an even split. 3, 3, 3, and 4 of each of the crests. Our market is an Elysian banner, because as you've heard me talk about it before, I'm a pretty big advocate of having one in the market. It just stops a lot of situations where you end up, you know, keeping a hand that has 3 power and then never really being able to draw anything and just losing. It helps out that situation. Like, you can Aurelian Merchant away and Azindel. Like, you might get a hand, for example, of 3 power Aurelian Merchant, like Azindel, Vara, and just end up drawing 2 more Azindels. In that kind of a situation, you're really going to want to switch an Azindel for a banner. And that happens more often than you think, where you just end up stuck with no way to actually get your extra power. And I like alleviating that a little bit by making sure that you have something in the market to get. We have Disjunction to buy back all of our attachments. We have another Tome of Repetition, because, like I said, it's kind of a key to the deck. We have Azindel as another just finisher if we are unable to find one right away, and we've got a bunch of Tome of Repetitions going off, so we've got a ton of mana. And then we have Scorpion Wasp as a little bit of extra removal against certain things. So we've got a bunch of different things going on, and I'm going to run it through some games. We'll see how it does. Really happy to have everybody, like I said, stopping by and pressing that like and subscribe button. I know that it's weird to shout it out so much, but you really have to. It's something that really helps me out a whole lot and doesn't cost you anything. Although if you do want to support the channel by spending a little bit of money too, we have a cool new channel shirt that's up. I'll put the link to that in the description. And we also have an inked gaming store. So if you like playmats and stuff for Magic the Gathering, or mouse pads for your video games, lots of other cool like dice bags and all kinds of cool gaming gear that's all custom made on inkgaming.com. And we'll be back for some games. See you in a minute.